and welcome everybody to the panel on open science policies and the situation in Croatia, the way we see it. Professor Franjo Pehar of the University of Zadar, and myself, my name is Vladimir Mrša, Faculty of Food Technology and Biotechnology at the University of Zagreb. We'll try to lead you through the discussion. I hope many of you will participate in the discussion. It's a panel, so we do not want to organize it as lectures and lecturing to the audience, but rather to have an interaction and discussion about this topic. So what is the open science? When I first heard about this term, I said, what the heck, isn't science by definition open? And if we are striving for an open science now, does it mean we are living in a closed one? And if it is closed, who closed it? Is it our institutions, our governments, our science companies, capital? Is it the big publishers, or is it us, the scientists? If we are living in a closed science, how do we open it? When I was a PhD student, my boss told me, go to the lab and have fun. And now the question is, can I say the same thing to my students? Or should I tell them, go to the lab and get me a Nature paper? Can opening of science bring back fun that we had? Because at the end of the day, isn't it the only thing that matters? Science without fun will give us piles of data, but very little result. And this is what is actually going on now. So our panelists today should at least try to bring us a little closer to the answers that we question now regarding the open science. Franjo, could you please?
Yes, thank you.
Take the stand and present us the panelists.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. Good morning, everyone. So I was given this heavy task to present such a significant group of extremely versatile and active experts, whose CVs I was unfortunately not able to summarize in an appropriate way, not to take too much time. Therefore, I ask all our panelists to forgive me for just highlighting only their current position without mentioning their overall scientific and professional contributions. So please let me just introduce shortly our esteemed panelists. Mrs. Ivanka Stričević, Director General of the National and University Library in Zagreb. Mr. Vladimir Bermanec, National Council for Science, Higher Education and Technological Development. Mr. Ivan Marić, Deputy Director and CTO of the University Computing Center SRCE and Croatian delegate in the European Open Science Cloud Governance Board. And last but not the least, Mr. Josip Faričić, Vice Rector for Development Strategy and Publishing at the University of Zadar. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are extremely honored that you have accepted to participate in today's panel, and we expect to have a lively discussion with lots of contributions on open science policies, evaluation, assessment, and in general supporting open science publishing. As Vladimir already said, I also encourage all participants to ask their questions in the QA section during or after the panel. Vladimir.
Thank you, Franjo. The first question is a very general, and it's directed to all of you. We have just heard a very nice introduction in the area of open science from Marin and the situation in France. How do you see the open science in Croatia? How do you see our open science landscape? And we have initiatives, we have different opinions, different attempts to do something in this respect, but we do not have any national policy on it. So perhaps we can just hear your opinion for the beginning of this panel. Yeah, I may ask Mr. Ivan Marić to start, and then...
Okay. Thank you, Vladimir. First, good morning to all, good morning to attendees, nice number of attendees here. Vladimir, you bought me with the first sentence you said about the fun, because this is my principle in work. If you don't have a fun, then the work is not something that you should do in your life. There should be fun. I agree with you. As coming back to your question, coming from service organization that provides scientists in Croatia, digital technologies and digital services that are on the bottom line of open science hype or movement or paradigm. SRCE and Ruđer Bošković are involved in a few landscapes that were done over the last year or so. On the first day of this PubMet conference, there was a NIFOS webinar. NIFOS project is one of the projects that is a part of the European Open Science Cloud initiative projects. And what we did in these projects are basically doing landscaping. Personally, I was involved in over the last 2 years, free landscaping done by E-Infrastructure Reflection Group, by EOSC Landscape Working Group, and by NIFOS Europe Working Group, where the number of stakeholders from Croatia were involved. In the last one, the NIFOS survey, I think almost 100 institutions, individuals from Croatia were involved. And this was a landscaping survey that includes Southeastern Europe countries. And the final results, you can find it. I can send you survey links of all three, where you can find position of Croatia in general in respect to the region or in respect to Europe. And the summary, executive summary basically of this landscaping is that we are on a very low level of readiness for European Open Science Cloud paradigm initiatives or awareness of open science in general. And what you can see in this survey result is basically the fact that we are all aware, and this is that there is one group of people, call it facilitators, promoters of open science initiatives, that are very well connected with European colleagues that are very familiar with this. And then there is a huge army of scientists, institutions, policymakers, etc., that are very, very low aware of open science paradigm or other things that are related to modern science. And this shows what we have to do in Croatia at least, but it's probably something that we can discuss later on and reflect to what Marin have in his keynote speak, 5 steps how to build national open science cloud, where we end up in the first 2 steps that are very important in Croatia. The first step is to get national roadmap. And I mean not just open science plan, but national research infrastructure roadmap, which we don't have. We have it on a few universities on institutional level, but on national level, we don't have it for quite a long time. And the second one is obviously the assuring funds that this roadmap is happening. And these are the first 2 prerequisites that in Croatia we are missing for quite some times, and this is what we can learn. Next steps we can discuss later on how to build national open science cloud. Just one reflection to Marin, of course, looking from France's perspective, which is a huge country, big country. This is a good guideline, and KONOSC project is a perfect platform where we can exchange ideas. But at the end of the day, Croatia is a small country, and we have to build a national roadmap and governance model and funding model appropriate to our size.
Okay, thank you, Professor Bermanec. You represent the National Council for Science and Technology Communication. That is the highest strategy bringing body in Croatia. So have you had any discussions about making open science a goal for future development of science in Croatia?
First of all, I'm happy to be here to listen what is going on with this open science in France and in other countries. I can tell you that it is nice to hear that this is process. This is not something what we can decide and we will have it from tomorrow. It is something what has to be funded, and the important part of this is, of course, position of the ministry. It is true that National Council is a strategic body of our parliament, but it is in a special position because we have a very big number of duties what we have to organize in our scientific community. So we have to take care about many things. Among the others, it is just mentioned roadmap. Roadmap is something what I would say many people in Croatia do not understand well. This is not strategy, but it can include strategy. We have to know what we have and what we will like to have, what we will not like to have, and how to do that. And this has to be funded, and this is very important. Of course, part of this is open access or open science. And the National Council decided to have some role in that because we organized our Croatian strategic forum for research infrastructure, and we are starting to talk about that, but there are many people resisting, and they do not like to show their abilities because we are not very well organized, and some things happened in a sense of I would say this like storm, because many institutions likes to be on the market. They try to sell their products, and actually this is not possible because we are also a public service. We have to organize education, science, and try to develop our technological possibilities. So this is very complex, and the National Council is trying to organize that, to organize laws, and try to organize the higher education, which has to involve not just open science, but science at all. So we are trying to follow, and this is reason why I am here today to hear what is already done and what can we apply in the future and how we can step forward in that sense.
Okay, thank you. I think the presence of somebody from this body is an important message in every case.
I would also like to say that I'm very sorry that nobody from the ministry has not attended this meeting.
Okay, this is we invited, of course, the.
Of course, yeah, I know.
But you know that the situation is objectively complicated because the minister has changed and
this is true. This is true, but you know, even my president of the National Council cannot attend this, but I'm here. So somebody from ministry can attend this. And the ministry is a very important chain in this conversation and discussions.
Thank you. Professor Stričević, you are now the head of our largest university library, but you also have experience in management of the university. You were the vice rector of the University of Zadar. So you can see this point from different perspectives, from different views. What do you think about the current position of Croatia within the general open science initiatives?
So, hello to everybody. So at least two different perspectives, one from the university community and the other one from the library community, from the National and University Library, which is the roof, we like to say, roof of the Croatian library system, which means a very close cooperation with all kinds of libraries in Croatia. So there is no doubt that, I'm sorry, I have a few slides. Let me.
You can just share the screen and that's the slides.
Let me find it.
At the bottom of the screen, there is a share screen button.
Yes, yes, I know. I hope you see it.
Yes, we see it.
Is it okay now?
Yep.
Okay. So there is no doubt that libraries as basic research infrastructures should be, must be deeply involved in all processes around open science and open access, because they should bridge that possible gap between citizens and scientists, and of course fulfill all possible gaps which we call knowledge gap in the society. So access to information and all these issues around open science and open access are somehow the leading and should be the leading principle for all sorts of libraries. If they want to create a participatory environment for citizens and connect scientists and society as a whole. We see, when I talk with librarians, we see that libraries have one of the key roles in open science because they fulfill their core mission of collecting and providing access to materials and data, especially in a digital age. And they also support researchers, scientists, and so on all of that is already well known. When I try to see what are actually really these roles, they are generally they go generally in 4 directions. The first is impact on the policies. The second is everything around providing and promoting infrastructure, like services within the institution, adoption of open access policies, ideas within the institutions, providing infrastructure, and so on. One very important issue is promoting and raising awareness on the benefits of open science and open access, and finally training and education, not only librarians, but also scientists, especially if we are talking about higher education institutions. And if we just shortly look at some documents, I would like to remind that there are much more than I put here, but just I would like to remind on the Croatian Declaration on Open Access from 2012, which is the declaration, of course, and it gives principles, not mechanisms if someone fails to comply with the requirements, for example. But Act on Scientific Activity and Higher Education from 2013 obliges higher education institutions to store all dissertations and theses in digital form in publicly available repositories of their institutions and in the repositories of the National and University Library in Zagreb. It says the law, our core law in the field of science and higher education. The strategies from 2014, Education, Science and Technology, it's a national strategy, is very specific about these things. And as you can see, it says open access to scientific and professional information generated by public funding. And there are much more documents. Right now we have a open public discussion about the law on copyright and related rights, which is also interrelated to the issues of open science and open access. So, but if we look at this strategy from 2014, it's very specific, and it really opens the arena for open access and consequently open science. But there is always but. There is a lack of precise and clear policies for implementation that would clarify regulations, and lack of mechanisms that could and would make alive these nice principles stated into some documents. For example, I will give you just one example. So we have a National and University Library in Zagreb, in collaboration with SRCE, manages much more projects and repositories, but 2 are interesting for this example. 2 repositories, one of digital thesis, which means final papers, final works of pre-graduate and graduate students, which is called ZIR, Z-I-R, and Croatian Digital Dissertations Repository, DR. So both started in 2015. Here are some figures, how many works we already have in the repositories. And it works in a way that students submit their work to the institutional repository of the local higher education institution or their home university. And after storage, the work becomes part of that national repository. And the same is for ZIR, for the first one, as well as for dissertations repository. So less than half are in open access, and a little bit more than half of doctoral dissertations are in open access, although the law on higher education, science and higher education states very clearly that doctoral thesis must be in open access. So what is the problem? There are, of course, many, but better defined procedures and protocols could help to put alive those things, those principles, those ideas, those statements that we already have in our laws or other documents. So we, as a National Library, we also provide access to scientific databases for the whole Croatian scientific community. In 2020, we have signed first transformative agreement, so-called transformative agreement, with Cambridge University Press, where Croatian scientific and academic community has an option, got an option of publishing unlimited number of papers in open access journals without charge. It is good, but only one now, the first one in Croatia. Some other activities that are related to open access from the National Library are more or less focused on one side, Croatian, so-called Croatian Digital Library, which is under development and it operates under the principles of open access. And on the other, not only open science, it goes broader, but it's open access. And the other thing is what stays to the National Library is to promote, provide, sensibilize, educate, and so on. We do not have any legal powers to impose open science or open access requirements or publishing, but what we can do, we can encourage and we can educate. So we, the most of our efforts, we direct in that direction. And of course, we are waiting for a new law on higher education and science that will possibly, and we hope so, state very clearly and more strongly these principles related to open science and public funding, as well as open access and publishing. I would stop here.
Thank you, Professor Stričević. Can you just stop sharing the screen?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And the question to Professor Faričić, how do you see the implementation of open science in a institution like a university? What would be the advantages that open science offers your institution, or how do you see the limitations? And is it possible to make it through at the level of the institution? How do you respond to these trends in open science?
Okay. Hello to everybody. I am from a relatively small university with only 600 employees and about 5,500 students. But we are trying to be included in a global academic community. And because of that, we indeed consider open science as extremely important for the exchange of knowledge, methods, and ideas among scientists. Also, we consider knowledge as a common or public good, and because of that, value of this good increases with dissemination, and in that case, better adoption. And because of that, we care that the results of research by scientists from our institution find the easiest way to scientists dealing with related topics, but also to all those who might be interested in the result of our research because of some kind of transfer of knowledge and technology. And because of that, we are very interested in incorporation of our results to various spheres of society and economy. And we have, of course, some problems. We would like to come to an unconditional approach to the research results of other scientists in the world. We are very open, and we are really in process of implementation of main principles of open science in a different way in our institutions, in scope of scientific research, and of course in scope of academic publishing, because we have very dynamic publishing at our university. Unfortunately, we have some problems because for our scientists often is not possible to publish in open way their results without paying various fees or subscriptions. And for those purposes, we have limited funds. And unfortunately, in many other ways, last few years, we had not support by our ministry. And we viewed that as a lack of communication between our ministry or state stakeholders and university and scientific institutes from other side. Well, we have some kind of path of open science in our country, but I think that last staff at our Ministry of Science and Education was not so hard interested in implementation of open science. And because of that, we try to find our ways to open science to our scientists and to open our results to wider global scope community. And because of that, we do many efforts and engage our scientists and especially those from our Department of Information Sciences, who are our so-called brain for open science. Of course, Professor Jadranka Stojanovski and Professor Franjo Pehar are crucial stakeholder inside of our university, and they have a role of bringer of key of concrete procedure and concrete actions. And because of that, we are very proud with some of our results. For example, we designed and introduced the Moderators publishing platform. More press is some kind of play of words, because that means in English to more publish in open area, but in Croatian more means see, and we consider see as some kind of media of communication, not only among scientists, but between scientists and other people in society and in economy. And we have a platform which is very important for publishing of our scientific journals. And in recent time, we have many efforts with some other kind of publications, especially conference proceedings, scientific monographs, and so on. And from our side, we do more and more in open of our results to our scientists. But of course, we have some problems with open scientific resources to our scientists at national level and at international level. We have some problems, for example, at the national level, when some governmental agencies or institutions have some restrictions with sharing important data from state databases. And because of that, we are some kind of magicians when we try to get such data. Of course, many governmental institutions and agencies open approach to so-called their data. For example, in a field of different statistics, different spatial data, and so on. And as some kind of conclusion of this introductional speech, I am free to emphasize that open science is a very important process which include many different actions, and universities are not often in situation to solve all problems. Universities and scientific institutions are only, of course, important, but one or few of stakeholders in a story about open sciences, which must include many other stakeholders.
Okay, thank you. There is a nice comparison of information and C, because both should be public and publicly available, and yes, everybody can go to make use of C. So this is the same thing as it should be with the information. Okay, thank you. Let's go back a step back towards the infrastructure. And Mr. Marić, how do you see the missing links? What would you like to have to promote open science and you do not have right now? I'm sorry, there is nobody from the ministry here, so
no,
they won't hear it. But
I have many hats, as Franjo said at the beginning. One of my hats is to represent
a man with at least three hats.
Yeah, to represent Croatia in some pan-European bodies. One of these bodies, of course, Infrastructure Reflection Group, which for the last 10 or 15 years advocates infrastructure commons that led to what is called now EOSC. And when we in SRCE discuss this topic, then we see it much wider than it's just data. Data is just one element of this infrastructure commons, starting from networking computing, national network of computing storage infrastructure, data, tools, services. This is all what we did in SRCE. And what we are doing is basically from the last 30 years when we start to build the first national communication commons, which is called Croatian Academic and Research Network, on the technology that was very novel at that time, TCP/IP. Then we realized that there are technologies that enable everybody to be part of what is called internet today. And this is some kind of first step to digital transformation that is happening in the society for the last decades. And this digital transformation is especially important in science and innovation, which are we talking today. And this digital transformation issue sharing of digital resources and services. And then we come to open science as a part, for me, of this digital transformation. And the sharing of digital resources is something that is architectural in the genes of SRCE. SRCE is building infrastructure with these premises, that we are building infrastructure for all scientists in Croatia, connecting these infrastructures to Europeans. And then we are enabling, by building such infrastructure, we are basically enabling infrastructure commons, enabling open science, etc. But it's not just that we are building digital infrastructures, digital resources, of which data is probably one of the focus of today's panel and discussion on open science publication data. But let me assure that sharing of any resource in this infrastructure is very important and connected. And personally, I am fighting against division or dividing data or publication, open access to data from e-infrastructure and other resources, because I think this at the end should be one living ecosystem that should go together. What is important to say, get back to your fun analogy at the beginning, is that what we are providing is basically to allow scientists to have fun. We have to basically fight against all these overheads that are currently on the scientist's head. And that's why training and education of using of these advanced infrastructure resources or data curation data is very important. We should not, it's really sad that Irena is not here. We had some discussion about introducing, for example, data management plan in next calls of Croatian Scientific Foundation. And this is one example that can foster the open science movement. And this is basically to get to scientists knowledge of what is the value of data in today's science. But this is very first initial steps to get statistical DMP. What I personally like when we talk about FAIR data today is American version of FAIR, and this is federated AI ready. And this is what is happening right now. Data that are produced are massive, in a massive amount. Human beings are not capable to understand what is happening nowadays, even in their own fields or part of the science discipline that are doing. So basically what we need is to produce data that are machine readable. And we have to focus on machine actionable DMPs. We have to focus on producing data that are fair at the beginning, not making data fair later on. That instruments and all other research is pushing fair data, producing fair data, and then processing this fair data. If I go back, where are we missing? Then it's again, basically in Croatia, we are having two problems. One problem is related to policies that we already discussed. SRCE is the national coordinator of many infrastructure, but what we are missing is basically this e-infrastructure coordination at national level. We should build stronger infrastructure building blocks. Right now, we are missing this component. The other element is this link towards user communities or scientific communities. In my personal opinion, and this is what SRCE is fighting, is basically that our user communities dictate how we build our services. And this is communication between us, service providers, and user communities. And I must admit that we are not so successful in having e-needs of user communities. And this is basically that we have a low level of coordination among users. And this is the major danger that we are fighting for the last decades, and this is called fragmentation in any sense. So fragmentation of user communities is one big problem. Government wants to solve that with different mechanisms like initiating calls for centers of research excellence or funding European research infrastructure consortium node in Croatia, etc. But the real thing is that we have problems also on the bottom level, but also on the top level. And the enemy is basically fragmentation, and by default, I repeat myself, SRCE is fighting this enemy, introducing culture of sharing of resources. I will stop here.
I understand. This is I can see the frustration. Okay, Professor.
No, I still have fun. Sorry, Vladimir.
Professor Bermanec. Professor Stričević mentioned the strategy for science and education and technological development in Croatia that has been adopted already in 2014. Still, it has not been transferred into practical laws, and especially when we are waiting eagerly for the law on the science and higher education, and the law on quality assurance in higher education. So these two laws are somehow in preparations for years already. What is your standpoint on this? Should this at least incorporate open science and put it into the legal perspective, into the legal framework?
Thank you for that question. This is very, as we say, hot potato in our hands. And I have to tell you, or to tell to the whole community, that in our community, among the different scientists, there are different ideas what to do with the law and how to form this law. We had a very hard period behind us when ministry tried to produce some laws which were not very welcome in a community. Because they had completely different ideas and basement for these laws. What is you can understand that I'm not from the law from this part of our university. And I don't understand all of these basic informations, how to make a law, and this is a special procedure. But I am in the position that I have to read what people produce. And the law is something what I assume is for using. And if you have a law which is useless, then it is not a good position to do anything. And it seems that some of attempts from different groups among the Croatian scientists wanted to produce something what can exchange our academic community in direction of the profit. And I think that I can say in the name of the whole National Council that we do not think that science and higher education has to make a profit. This is a question of the interest of the whole society, and we have to produce people who will be healthy and able to follow the streams of the whole world, and not just to serve some particular group of scientists or some other activists. So in that sense, we would like to see what will be proposed in the next proposal of the law, because we can tell that some law is appropriate or not. We cannot propose it. So we have to wait the law from the bodies which are legally assumed to produce laws. Okay. That's about law. But we have many low-level proposals and categorizations and so on, what are also very important and important for development of the community, scientific community, and we are hardly work on that.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks. I see the point. Yes. Franjo, we have several questions from the audience.
Yes.
Can you jump in and...
Absolutely. We have collected actually one comment with which we can only agree, and that was that the ministry representatives and the representative of the Croatian Science Foundation have not joined us. We can only regret. So the first question was posed by Professor Vladimir to all the panelists. So it's a very specific question, and if we are not able to give an answer to that question, then I will rephrase it in a more broader way. So could you name Croatian journals which have adopted open data policy? If we don't have the answers, then I think we should somehow rephrase it in the sense that we try to give an answer to whose responsibility would it actually be to monitor these kind of data.
I would say that in the Marin presentation, Open Science Monitor that they established in France is something that is now part of strategic research and innovation activity of EOSC. Basically, if you want to follow the progress of initiatives, then you have to establish the monitoring of this. In SRCE, we are doing national CRIS system, CRORIS, which is a part of ministry project Foresight study, which basically will replace all this annoying statistical questionnaire that we have to fill every now and then we are frustrated and don't have a fun to do science. Like Vladimir said, that we have yet another questionnaire to fill to find out what is the situation of certain area in our country. And usually these are the views from individuals, and they don't monitor the real situation. So again, I'm for some of these things, automatization is okay. One of these things is how many publishers are in open access mode. This is something that should be automated, I think. And probably the coordinator of or SRCE or someone else should enable this feature in the future.
Thank you very much. Maybe someone else would like to try to answer to this, to give an answer to this question. If not, then we can proceed to the second question posed by Maria Tomečak. It is for Professor Stričević. So the question is, project e-sources will end soon. What is the plan for the future and how to help scientists to read and publish scientific results?
Project e-sources is very important for, let's say, both directions, to make our scientific achievements more visible in the world and within different scientific communities, as well as to have the access to scientific works in the world. We are, of course, in contact on a daily basis with the Ministry of, really on a daily basis at this time, with the Ministry of Science and Education, because the project is close to the end. It's April next year formally. And we have to go through very complex procedures, you know, because the negotiations around databases are very, very complex. It depends when the call will be, everything actually now depends when the call will be publicized, when we shall have the call for the projects. If not, we hope that there are, if not soon, that there are some options, some backup options to somehow bridge that possible gap between the periods for the recent one and the new one for new 3 or 5 years. So maybe just in short, we are aware of it. It doesn't depend, of course, on the National and University Library. I would say that on the library and the committee, which is much broader than the library, National Library, there is a task for them to create a project, but decisions about money and how to collect money are far beyond the library and that committee. So for now, we are doing what we can, what is our job, and of course, we are sensibilizing our ministry for, I would say, April next year.
Thank you very much. We have, I think, time for 2 short additional questions. We have a new question in the QA section, and it's posed by Iva Grabarić-Andonovski to Professor Bermanec. Could the National Council for Science, Higher Education and Technological Development give any recommendations to the Ministry of Science and Education to support diamond open access journals?
Thank you. At the moment, we did not make such attempts, but of course we are carefully looking at the development of the open access society or science, and we hope that the ministry will hear what we will tell them. of course, I have to stress once again that we are including this question in the other very important questions what we would like to produce through roadmap of Croatia. I have to tell you once again that Croatia is the only one European country which has no really roadmap. The last ministry tried to tell us that there are some documents which they call it roadmap, but these were very particular documents, and they were not really recognized in Europe as roadmaps. And I have to tell you that some other non-European countries also have such documents, and of course, open access will be very, very important in this document.
Thank you very much. And the last question for Mr. Marić. As a representative of one of the SRCE infrastructures that are supported by the Croatian Ministry of Science and Education, I would very much need to have more tight cooperation with SRCE. On the other hand, there are some requirements from our ERICs that we have to fulfill, and also there are some tools that we are developing together with our European partners. These tools are often not very useful if they are not tailored for specific needs. Can you comment on how we can reconcile that?
Of course, Mariana, as you're aware, the goal of building national e-infrastructure is very, first, very expensive, and secondly, we are limited. We cannot cover all the needs that certain communities or research infrastructure consortium have. Of course, we will provide the commons, and the commons means that we all agree that this is the way that we should build a certain level of e-infrastructure. If you look at my definition or SRCE definition of e-infrastructure, then it's layered, starting from housing equipment, low level, data centers, then networking, then computing, data services, etc. But not all of these components are necessary, obliged to be used by each user community. So user community pick up few of these e-commons, e-infrastructure commons, and use it. We will be very happy if we can provide platform as a service, as an ultimate platform that will be used by every community, but we are aware that there are so many scientific portals of different communities that we cannot cover all. SRCE is basically infrastructure organization that is limited in manpower, and this is what service providers are usually limited. This is not money, this is not infrastructure, basically it's a human people that you are aware of that. So basically, if we provide one technological support for national digital repository like Icelandora and Zadar, then SRCE is limited to provide full expertise, full support for two technological repositories. So we should be happy to build expertise on one that is chosen by the community. And this is what the infrastructure commons means. Doesn't mean that we are Talibans that will force every research community to use this technology, but we have to agree what are the commons that we have all agreed to be used. Thus, well, the philosophy of commons, as I said, is the culture of sharing. So it should be built in the nation, it should be built in a community, this culture of sharing starting from education. Because the major enemies that I see right now is basically that there are calls that allow user communities to build parallel infrastructure which are very costly. We should avoid that, and this is where the money saving is. We don't need new money, we just have to be more efficient, and there is existing money that we can use on a smarter way. And I don't know if I answer you, but you know that we have this meeting of ERICs in Croatia, and we are cooperating, finding the best way how national infrastructure providers SRCE can cooperate with all the infrastructure research, with all research infrastructure consortia in Croatia. We know that there are some communities that are much mature in using digital technologies, but nowadays all scientific communities are forced to be digitalized. And it's a new element that we in SRCE are thinking about when we are building our national components of the infrastructure, of course, with the community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marić. I was asked by our host, Jadranka Stojanovski, if she can pose a question to Mr. Marić. Vladimir, if you agree, we can give the opportunity to Jadranka to pose a question alive.
I would hate not doing it.
Yes.
I'm afraid not doing it.
As a panelist, I'm not allowed to put my question in question and answers area, so that's my only opportunity. And I have a question for Ivan Marić. And do you think that, actually, I can understand that SRCE is focused to provide infrastructure and at the same time to stay neutral and let community actually use this infrastructure in the way the community thinks it's needed. But do you think that infrastructure itself can more push users towards open science concepts in different directions, and also knowing that SRCE is globally open science oriented and it's really supporting openness? I'm sometimes surprised that, for example, SRCE is not sharing software. SRCE is using commercial database platform for a national CRIS system, and it's somehow contradictory, don't you think?
Well, Ivanka, thank you for the question. It's a good one. As I said, it's a tough challenge to be service provider, to stick in to provide what various communities in any country, including Croatia, ask for, and a service provider like SRCE, national service provider of digital services and technologies. Our aim, our goal is to be to use open source to build the major component. But if you look at our AI system that we are providing for national academic community, if you look at our national advanced computing infrastructure like Croatian GR or HPC infrastructure, if you look at Zadar, all these major parts of national infrastructure are built with the community. SRCE is from the 19th, when I said that we didn't, we start with this building academic network on open platform, TCP/IP, and we continue doing this for a long time. Before that, SRCE was very much following what the industry, IT industry dictated, and the history of SRCE is basically can be copied to or reflected to history of open source in Croatia. Some of our information systems are built on the vendor-specific products. Probably you're aware of Informix or anything similar. But these are basically the stability, provide stability of modern information systems that are running business information system, not something that we are actually doing right now in open science area. As you mentioned, CRIS is one kind of tool that is basically more closely to big ERP system or business information system that will be used by ministry, funding agency, policy makers, etc., that will help them to do foresight in the future of research system in Croatia. So I wouldn't blame SRCE just picking up this one system. I think that in major we are open source company. And your question is basically much deeper, if I understand, and this is how community and SRCE building community services. And this is what we really are open for, building community service by community. And the fine example that you are aware of is basically choosing the platform for Zadar or this data services. And this is how we would like to continue in building any digital technology or service which will become part of national infrastructure commons. This is huge involvement of community data scientists nowadays, e-scientists, data curator, etc. Because what we are doing is making technology. On the other side is science, and what we need in between is basically facilitator, the people that will, or the mechanism platform that will help certain user community, scientific community, to set up digital technologies and resources we are providing for them. As Mariana asked, basically, it's not like Google or Amazon or any other public services. That's why we are very close to research communities, and we, as a service provider, have to do a setup for certain communities. Setup for a chemical, computational chemistry scientists is different from setup from digital and humanities scientists or similar. So this is where the people and training and education is very important. What we need is basically to establish this e-scientist mechanism that we called in project Hrvatski znanstveni obrok, is basically the platform that will merge together the both sides, infrastructure resources and data scientists from the other side. And then we will establish use cases, research workflows, or I didn't mention higher education. That is a huge part of SRCE business, basically, and we are not discussing open education in this panel. But it's just to give you the size of national company like SRCE. Basically, you know me, I advocate that SRCE is basically each of us, not just 150 people that are working in SRCE, because if we open to community, then the community SRCE belongs to this community.
Mr. Marić, thank you very much. We humans are forgiving with time, but the technology is not forgiving us the times, because we have to prepare the second round at 11 o'clock, which starts. So thank you all. Thank you very much for taking part in this panel. Vladimir, do you have anything for the end? It was your introductory. Do you have one sentence to round up, or just to say goodbye?
I think we are clearly in a situation where we have many initiatives that are going bottom up, and it's a pity that Marić had to leave, because I think France was in a similar situation a couple of years ago, but they made a step towards the national policy and the national level. And perhaps this is the path we should go. We should just follow those who did this before us, and France is one of the countries. I would also like to thank all the panelists, clearly, and also the participants. I see that we still have about 100 participants, which was about the same number as we had at the beginning, which means we were at least not too boring. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Bye. It was fun. Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank you.
Yeah.